Ico and Shadow of the Colossus are two of the most highly regarded games on the PlayStation 2. Both works are noted for their visual excellence, art direction, and emotional impact. They were designed and directed by Fumito Ueda, an artist from Japan who later became a game designer. There are two distinguishing features that make Ueda's games so good. The first is a subtractive design, which seeks to eliminate everything from the game that's unnecessary to the core gameplay, story, theme, and message. And the second is that all of his games focus on relationships. Take a look. All of these relationships have one thing in common: they're atypical, separated by language, death, and biology. This means that none of the traditional verbal ways of interacting and creating relationships, especially those used in video games, are used here. Ueda has forced himself to use other modes of communication like actions and body language to convey and build relationships. You see, he understands that actions speak louder than words. And when you think about it, this actually works really well for a video game because action translates into gameplay. This, I think, is Ueda's greatest achievement and contribution as an artist and game designer. He successfully builds these relationships in and through gameplay, not in spite of. And why is this such an achievement, you ask? Well, in the past, games have borrowed storytelling techniques from books and film, having their stories told through cinematic, non-interactive cutscenes.
Circumstances.
Yes, it is. Can we get this over with, please?
Of course. This way. But I must warn
Or less interesting, text or dialogue that may or may not be narrated. All three of these kinds of storytelling segments are completely removed from the main gameplay, and are usually only meant to provide motivation for the rest of the game. That doesn't mean that these are bad or completely ineffective, they're just borrowed from books and film. Ueda's approach is so amazing because it's exclusive to games. As video games continue to develop into a unique and effective medium for communication, we need people like Ueda to pioneer these new, interactive modes of communication. His games are worth remembering because they deal with relationships in a unique and effective way that elicits a strong emotional response. Okay, so now I'm going to show you exactly how Ueda has accomplished this by looking at each game individually. I'll start with the first one, Eco. So what is Eco? Well, it's an adventure game with a central focus around navigating environmental puzzles. If you think of the mood and atmosphere of Myst, with the navigating and puzzles of Prince of Persia minus the death traps, then you've got a pretty good idea of what Eco's like. The object is to escape a massive, intricate castle. What makes the game unique, though, is that you must also lead the frail girl Yorda through the castle. She makes the puzzle-solving original, but she's also the reason why the game is so important and worth remembering. I'll explain in more detail later on. The graphics are really good. There's an obvious attention to detail in every environment. They're so good, in fact, that they actually feel like the reward for making progress. And that's saying a lot. Eco is a simple game. As I said before, Ueda uses a subtractive design. This means that there's no HUD, which shows things like a health bar or a map. There's no complex inventory management, and there's no tutorial. You know, of all the things that go into making a game, this has got to be one of the most difficult and time-consuming things to get right. To teach the player the rules of the game without lecturing them in a structured tutorial. It takes using noticeable but subtle visual cues, level layouts that guide the player, and careful pacing to not introduce too much at a time, things like that. Now, two perfect examples of games that do this right are World of Goo and Portal, both very highly regarded games, due in no small part to this fact. Now, Eco does a pretty good job at this, but it's not perfect. On at least 2 occasions, the game fails to adequately show you what you're able to do. The first time this happened was when I learned by chance that you can actually call Yorda from a really tall height. She'll climb onto a box and jump up to reach your hand. Now there's really no good visual indication for this because I kept trying to get her to climb the chain. There's a box-shaped tile on the floor, so it looks like she can climb the box and climb the chain, but it's impossible. But anyway, besides that, most of the puzzles are really fun. What's more interesting, though, is that these puzzles are actually agents of storytelling. As I mentioned already in part 1, the vast majority of games today separate their story segments from their gameplay segments, but this is not the case with Eco. Sure, much of the story is built through cutscenes, but the puzzles and gameplay are also irreplaceable agents of storytelling. The majority of Eco's experience is completely non-verbal. And herein lies the genius of Ueda's design.